We have one question for John that is called, what is the difference do you expect to see between your study and the similar waste to wisdom and NARA studies on the West Coast? I think this was answered by Dr. Ying Singh, but I don't know if John wants to add something else.
I think Dr. Wong answered that a little bit in the chat box, but I'll expand a little bit. Or
Mhm.
so I think the difference is it kind of reflects those studies, but in a different area. So we're focusing on a little bit different area specific to how we delineated those regions. Again, the forest species type, the typical harvesting systems, and we're focusing in on those key areas.
Thank you, John. We have several for Jim. What makes water in soil unavailable to plants? Are
It's
there, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead. I'll listen to the whole thing.
No, it's okay. I was going to follow with other questions, but
Oh,
we can
okay.
go.
Well, what makes so just because there's water in the soil doesn't mean that it's available, all of it's available to the plants. So the tighter the voids that the water fills, the harder it is for plants to extract that based on the pressures that the plant is able to create through turgor pressure, internal turgor pressure. So that's how we describe the relationship of field capacity, which is where the water is about to start dripping out of the soil or moving downward, or drought. So there even into drought, there's water available in the soil, or there's water there, it's just not available. And that's what I was talking about. At some point, the water, even though it's additional capacity, it's in such a small, tight void that it's not available to the plant.
Thank you, Jim. The next one is, are there any presidential executive actions that could be used to facilitate the use of biochar made from forest slash for any soil organic matter?
I don't know of anything specifically right now. I I don't have that kind of connection to the so I can't really say. I don't have anything on hand at my fingerprints.
As far as I know, there are none. There are several secretarial orders or actions, and also the Global Change Research Program is proposing this as one alternative for carbon sequestration.
I would like to say that, you know, those two acts that I pointed out in my presentation, the Multi-Use Sustainable Yield Act and the Food Securities Act, they're not created for this kind of thing, but they allow us to work in ways that they could be paired up, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that would allow us to make this transition to move the biomass in an easier fashion, rather than having these two siloed acts figure out how to connect them.
Thank you, Jim. There is another one. Do contractors who remove wildfire debris and recover biochar on national forests on the biochar they produce? I think you answered this to Tom.
Yeah.
Jim, subsidizing application is a great way to get biochar into the ground. How could producers of biochar leverage the activities that to become a stronger network to supply down to stream users?
Yeah, as far as that, I think it would be, you know, working with the NRCS and the two things that they have going for them now, both the CSP 384 and the 808 work that Tom Miles has mentioned probably earlier in the week. So that's existing program work that's already available and could help move things along faster. The thing about the system that I portrayed, we're the feedstock producer. We're not necessarily applying it on anybody's land. we don't even we probably won't even be making biochar. We're providing the feedstock to do that. So that would be maybe working with other agencies, but we would be a part of the chain.
Jim, are there programs that allow rural neighborhoods and neighbors to get together to, I'm sorry, I don't understand my own writing, to get funding to decrease fire danger and produce biochar?
As I understand it, in talking with some NRCS folks, that's how they're foreseeing the CSP 384 and this other work as being structured. They need their clients to get with the NRCS, and they would be the ones doing that. Although maybe later on down the road, state and private forestry, who I work for within the Forest Service, could play a role in that.
Thank you. Now it's all the questions are for Kim. Kelpie, I'm sorry. Um, you got a lot of accolades, Kelpie. It's a permit required to use this in the booth. They are speaking about your kilns, the Ring of Fire.
It's so variable. In Oregon, we've been able to use them just under normal burning regulations, and getting burning permits from local fire authorities or the Forest Service, who are in charge of telling us when it's safe to burn. But in other states, we've had a little more trouble getting burn permits. However, for instance, yesterday I was in Scott Valley in California at a site where they had a tiger cat as well, and we're demoing different techniques in the Ring of Fire kiln. And CAL FIRE was there, the local air board was there, and so having a chance to have discussions with regulators and having them come out and see what we're doing, we're starting to break through and have a lot of success in getting the permits. But it's variable. It depends on where you are and what the local fire and air resource authorities tell you.
Thank you. There is another one. What is the service life for the flame cap kiln?
I don't know. The pyramid kilns that I've made, I've had for about 5 years now. Most of them have dozens of burns on them, and they show no sign of wearing out. There's a little rust, but they're very tough and durable. The Ring of Fire kiln is made out of a little bit lighter gauge steel, but I'm confident that you'll get dozens of burns before you might have to replace a piece because it rusted or got damaged. So just don't know yet. We haven't been doing it long enough.
Thank you. How much does a Ring of Fire kiln weigh? Are they stackable for transportation? Could you mention that they are cooler outside and allow people to get close?
Yes, that's one of the big advantages, is the heat shield makes it much easier to work around the shorter kilns, the pyramid kilns, or what I call the Oregon kiln. You're more exposed to the flame because that kiln's only 2 feet high. The Ring of Fire kiln is 44 inches high, and the heat shield, we measured the temperature of it yesterday, was less than 200 degrees Fahrenheit on the heat shield. So it really protects you from the flame. And by that token, of course, you're retaining more of the heat in the kiln, so you're improving the efficiency.
There is another one. How many of them can you carry on in a pickup truck?
So the entire kiln weighs about 240 pounds, all the pieces. Like I said, though, no one piece weighs more than 40 pounds, so people can easily move the pieces around. Let's see, I took 5 in a trailer. I could have fit 5 in the back of my F-150, I think.
Thank you. What biomass is used to create the biochar at the Willow with the ranch?
At Willowit Ranch, they mostly had fir, I think, different softwoods.
Kelpie, could you mention about extending the season for forest slash removal using your kilns versus conventional fuel removal methods, such
You know,
as more piles and prescribed burns?
mm-hmm. I don't know if we can extend the burn season. It would be up to regulators. I think it's inherently safer. For one thing, we always have water on site. And of course, it's, you know, the materials inside a container. Um, but it's just going to be so variable whether or not that's going to be possible. And it'll be very site specific.
What is the biochar yield percentage from a ring of 5 kilns?
Well, I'm using a percentage by volume of 18% based on, you know, really rough field measurements. And you know, that's just kind of what I've come to, kind of aggregating a bunch of rough data. It's difficult because I have no way to weigh the biomass. I have to make volume estimates. Um, and I've got a lot of methods that I've developed for doing this that I'd love to have people critique. But they're all, there's a I think on my website, I have a free PDF download that's Biochar Job Estimating Handbook. And you can see all my calculations that I use there.
Thank you. What kind of materials the kiln rings are made? How you can test the temperature inside the ring?
It's mild steel, just mild carbon steel. And I actually, the temperature in the ring, I have a thermocouple device that I can use to, I have a long metal probe you can insert in there, and you can get some ideas of temperatures inside.
What was that sequestration equation that Kelpie said?
Again, that you'll find that in the Biochar Job Estimating Handbook. That's a free PDF on wilsonbiochar.com.
Perfect. Could governors or US president facilitate carbon conservation corps by executive action alone?
I don't know. I don't know much about policy and how to make things happen like that. I tend to work from the ground up, build the demand from the people who are on the land and see what happens.
Thank you, Kelpie. Now I have questions for Nate and some more time, not too long. So I hope we can cover all of them. One of them, Nate, is about, it says, great job. USDA, US Forest Service are moving to change the contracting process to facilitate these production efficiencies. It seems that it will help producers all the way to end users.
Yeah, it's a great question, and the short answer is yes. The U.S. Forest Service, in particular, I can't speak for other agencies with their contracting, but it is through an effort called the Forest Products Modernization Initiative, and I would encourage you to Google that and look it up with the U.S. Forest Service, trying to I think move in a direction on multiple fronts, including contracting, where we see the current biochar, bioproducts, bioeconomy, forest industry landscape as quite different than what we traditionally have done in the agency with timber sales and stewardship contracts and some of the contracting mechanisms that many of you on this call are probably familiar with. So I do not know all of the different things that are going on with that forest products modernization effort, but I know a big part of it is to try to change some of the kind of the mechanisms and levers that we can use to facilitate some of the new uses for wood and biomass, and some of the new types of treatments that are going on, and some of the new types of relationships between agencies and the public sector and NGOs and industry that really are quite new to us. So the answer is yes on that front. But I'd encourage you to go look up the details.
There is another one about one person that is reservist with, he's a reservist for FEMA, and he sees tons of bio waste, and he's saying if we could partner with FEMA to use that bio-waste after disasters to pyrolyze that waste?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think for biomass users, it really boils down to their specifications for the types of materials they need. And so one of the issues, those of you who have seen the aftermath of a tornado or a hurricane, particularly I was in the panhandle of Florida after Hurricane Michael went through, and recently there was a great paper on how much volume was put on the ground in the forest in the path of that hurricane. It is just staggering. And so the question here and the idea is, can we leverage, if an event like that occurs where we have a lot of woody biomass on the ground, is that a source, one of these episodic sources where pyrolysis systems might be able to accomplish the goal of cleaning up after a hurricane or tornado, but also have this supply chain in place where we can produce biochar from those materials. One issue with that is a lot of the wood waste that's associated with the destruction of homes and buildings is mixed in with other things that people don't want in their biochar downstream. And so I think we need to think about the contamination of woody biomass coming from those sites compared to forested sites that are kind of leveled by a weather event or have a high level of mortality as a result of a weather event. So I think we need to be conscious of urban waste streams following events like that. But I think there's a lot of opportunity, exactly what the person asking the question is hinting at, is how could we have mobile systems that process waste? Another issue is just the sheer volume of material that's produced in those situations. It's just staggering. So can we make a dent in places where it makes the most difference, which is typically communities close to where people live?
Thank you, Nate. I think we are reaching the end of this session.